Today, we have a pretty good day for you today. We are going to cover a couple things that are happening in the market. Last couple days, we didn't really cover anything, honestly, because nothing notable happened. And today was barely the case, but we'll cover a couple things, kind of key takeaways. So when we look at this performance in the market, we're going to show the last 3 days, which was basically, well, 3 days before today. So we have a situation where it totally dropped down, jumped up, and settled in. A little bit of a loss. Prior one had a massive up, which we covered that day. 2 days ago, kind of an even, massive drop, recovered, and then it went down again at the end of the day, which was kind of odd. And then yesterday, I call it the heartbeat. I mean, literally flat, up, way down, and back to normal. It was literally a break even day. Um, if we look at where things were at for the day. So, and then today, kind of relatively, it was up about 2,000. Basically, this is where the market was at close. This is where aftermarket, so it counts this. Basically, is a break even for the most part. Goes down a little bit today, goes up and settles up higher. So it's just a weird up and down, very jagged, very volatile day. If you happen to be looking in the market, you'll see points like this, and this, and maybe even this a little bit as key buying points. And then if you're looking to sell this, and maybe up here. Um, but overall, I look at this and it's a lot of just noise. Honestly, there wasn't a whole lot to pay attention to for the most part. If you had something you wanted to sell or buy, it was an opportunity to maybe grab one of those in those moments, one of which we did today, which we'll talk about. Other than that, we're going to talk a little bit about restraint. So today, we'll take a look at our stocks. So overall, the last 2 days, let's see, the stocks that fell the most, full house resorts or properties or hotels, whatever, went down 14%, went from 890 to 768. Went down a little bit farther, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Vine went down, which we sold, which was kind of nice. We sold them at like I think 280 or 290. It's now sitting at 264, so that was a smart move. Red Robin Group in place, we were considering buying, but 5 and 6% really isn't enough for 2 days. And then as we go down a little bit farther, anything lower we don't really look at. As far as gains, we had some really nice gains, most of the gains that were the highest gains we owned, which is a beautiful thing. But all of a sudden we had one for full, was it Future FinTech, which is that Chinese firm. They do blockchain technology, went from 613 to 902, went 47%. And if we look at that for the day, pretty much all that was in one day, went up 43% today from 6.28 to 9.02. I was considering buying that, and it's like, should you have bought it? Maybe. I was a little bit skeptical of the um, kind of some of the stuff out of China because there's not as much regulation as far as the numbers being accurate. And if you look at stuff like Luckin, Luckin, I think they had some shady numbers going on. So, but we looked at them overall. It was kind of moving in the right direction. Spiked right here. Generally, this is your trend line. And we look at over the last week, and then it had a massive spike here, it had a secondary spike today, but basically it was sitting at 650, and in the matter of a couple hours went up to 824. So could you have predicted it? Nah, not really. I mean, we look at their numbers; they always hit their numbers, but again, I don't necessarily trust the Chinese numbers because you know there's some shadiness that goes on there with some of the companies. Oop. All right. So with that being said, other than that, we pretty much owned everything that went up the highest, between 8 and 5%. As far as things that dropped, Next ID was one we're looking at. If we're going to look at buying something that dropped 10%, but it's already 50% of what we bought it for. And if we look at Next ID, we're already at 4,200. So we don't necessarily need to buy anything on that end. VVI dropped from 39 to 36. Not a real big deal. And plus, we've doubled our money on that. So nothing there. Braemar Resort went down 6%. If we look at Braemar Resort, we have about 3,000, but we've more than doubled it. There's no sense in lowering our cost basis unless we get a bigger drop to do that. But I'm not lowering the cost basis for 6% in a day. There's no way. And then IMVT, which is Immunovariant, I think, something like that, Immunovant, and they're a biotech company. They're down 16%, but between 23.60 and 22.35, it's not worth this juice is not worth the squeeze yet. It would have to have a bigger drop for us to do that. Plus, it's a biotech company, and I'm not really going to throw tons of money at a biotech company. So overall, not a whole lot to work on, but we did talk about one stock, Full House Resorts. This one was at 789 to begin the day. We'll pull this up here. And I've wanted this stock for a while. If we look at them for the last 3 months, it's been a nice little jump right here, but we see a little tail off, which is good. Nice little buying opportunity. But we look at them, they do gaming, hospitality, and entertainment, which is right in the wheelhouse of what we love talking about. And so I looked at them, and we'll take a look at for the month. We look at dips down to 573, 682, and then 739. And it's like, all right, well, we have some points we want to look at. So we look at the lowest point, 671, but it jumped up here, went back down, and went all the way down to about 737. And I figured I definitely want to get it. I don't think we have to wait till it goes down to 737 because it may not go down there. It may go up a little bit and we lose our opportunity. But I wanted to get to a point where we're feel like we're winning the negotiation. So we looked right here, and all this is right around 772, 777, 776, 775. And I figured, okay, if this goes down to 765, it's enough of a win that we would get to buy it. So it dropped down to about 63. We got it 765, and it went back up to 768. So we bought it for 765. We have a tiny little bit of a gain, which means we probably have it as a good price point. So we went ahead and added that one right there. So with that being said, we are take that off. That off. All right, so we're sitting here at about total book value of 173. I just showed this an after hours gain of 500, but we had a gain roughly of, I want to say 2000 and something today. Yeah, $2,620 today. About a 2% gain, which is not too bad. And we're sitting here after the margin sitting at a gain of 110, more than quadrupled our number. We're on our way to looking at quintuple our number. So overall, anything in the red, we always look at. Fubo, which is going to take off, guys. If you haven't bought this stock, you need to buy it. If it goes down to 10% in the red, I'll buy some more stock on it. But I already own $4,000 of it. GameStop, might be the last stock we sell, but we're going to let that one ride. Immunovariant, we have a small allocation there, but it's a biotech stock. I'm sure it'll move up. I have no problem with that. And then Verint, or whatever this one is, this is a cybersecurity company. I mean, this one is going to absolutely explode. This is another one. If you do not own this stock, you want to consider doing it. So I'm considering getting more of it, but it would need to drop down more than pretty much a break-even point for me to do that. I want to keep my powder dry and options in case we have some more down days in the market. Because we will have up days, which is great. Numbers go up, value goes up. But if we have down days, that's where the shopping happens. So with that being said, I have a bunch of list of stocks that I'm considering getting. The ones that are probably number one on my bullpen ready to go are Children's Place. It's dropped. Gosh, yeah, where have we looked at for this? Children's Place has dropped 6% from about $77 to $72. I figure if it goes down to around 70, I'll consider buying it. But the thing about Children's Place is this is pretty much the only reason why I'm probably not buying it right now. If we look at over the course of 3 months, it's a consistent thing, and we don't have any big dips. So I kind of like to buy dips. Beyond that, Bowling of America, that's another one we looked at. This one is a smaller stock. So we see more jagged moves. It's just like more right angles. But this one's moved up pretty nicely. It dropped down to here, but it's still, the trend line is like right here. So it's still within the trend line. If it drops down to about here, then I'll probably consider buying it. But it needs to drop more for us to do that. Ryman Properties, the same thing. And maybe some more Fubo if it drops. And then Cruise lines, something that we'll consider getting in the future, but this is kind of our bullpen that we're looking at. I have pretty much all these plugged in. I don't have a buy price for this one. We'll just throw, let's say, 40 on there. At least gaming, we'll say 450 just to throw a number in. 22. Corsair, we'll say 38. And then the number I look at, and here is the price to go. When we start to see a zero here, that's one that we'll consider doing. This one's sitting here at 259. I have a price point of 240. We'll just say 220 on that because that's what our cost basis is. Anything in the zeros is kind of where we start to pay attention a little bit on if this is a stock we want to consider getting. But for right now, we're doing pretty good. We're on pace again for about 300,000. The only reason this one's dropped is because we bought some stocks that, for example, Full House Resorts, their upside is 0.46 because it's gone up a lot. Although I think it's not going to just sit here and be restricted to where the February 20th price was last year, which was like 355. I think we're going to go up a lot more than that. So I think that's why this number goes down, but we're going to be somewhere around 300,000 when all things are said and done. As far as, let's look at some COVID information. Again, this is San Diego. Oh, we'll look at, what we'll do? I'll show you some other things. So let's go to Florida. COVID. Just look at some big states here. Look at Ohio, COVID. And I'll show you one that I New York COVID, and we'll look at Texas COVID. All right. All right. So we're going to look at some San Diego ones here, which I think are relevant to kind of what we're seeing across the country. Again, you can definitely see, they always said the first spike, the first wave was here, the second wave's here. The second wave's always worse than the first wave. But it's really obvious, guys. We're over it. I mean, we're basically where we were in November, before anything really jumped up. We look at deaths, same thing. I mean, we're way down here. I mean, to a point where we're, back lower than we were any other time there. Testing started to go down, I think partially because they're running out of people to test or people aren't as concerned about it. Positivity rate went from 14.5 to 6.42. Again, there's fewer people with have it for the most part. Plus, the tests were found to be overly positive. So I think they're making some corrections and finding out that maybe there's not as many people with COVID as there were before. Hospitalizations are crashing. So the blue is hospitalized. That's crashing as well, in line with our prior stat. Daily hospital census for COVID, they're not going to in the hospitals anymore. And people, again, this number is continuing to go up, if not being flat. So people are going to the hospital when they don't have COVID for things that they weren't doing before. So they weren't in the hospital here, but they were here before. I never look at cumulative. Hospitalizations by week, we had a couple small spikes, and then we're going down dramatically. Who's getting it? Again, they're all old people, and they're all underlying medical conditions. That hasn't changed. But we look about Florida. So let's take a look at, I'm not going to look at it by county. They actually have a really good dashboard, by the way. So we'll look at deaths. Deaths per day in the state of Florida. It was up almost 200 per day, and they were literally at 4 in the whole state. Florida has 22 million people, guys. 4 people died. Okay. That tells you all you need to know. Case positivity rate, they never got really high. They're around 6%. I guess they were at 14% for a little, but that was a statistical outlier. Realistically, the trend line is right here, which is right around 6%. And new cases per day, again, going down a little bit for the most part, but new cases are not equating to deaths. So, but you can break this down by county as well. All right, wait for this applet to load up, and they basically stole this off of. There's a world one But deaths by date of death, you can basically look at everything. You can zoom by county and look at the rate map. Okay, cases by county. And these are all just color coding for the most part. Cases by zip code. Age distribution of cases. So most of the people are getting it are really young, but they're not dying. Most of the people are white. Most of the people are non-Hispanic. You can go to testing on that all you want. Hospitalizations, non-resident deaths. It's Florida, so they're always going to say non-resident for sure. Let's take a look at Ohio. And Ohio looks a little bit different, but you can break it down by, there we go. Cases, again, this is the same thing in San Diego. Second wave's over. Hospitalization, the second, really a third wave, 1, 2, and 3. And deaths are just non-existent. This is probably lower the deaths than they've been the entire time we've had it, other than like in March. And presumed recovered, which again, they're past the second wave. So this tells you all you need to know about that. Um, all right, so we're not going to look overall. They have a pretty good one. As far as New York, where is the... Okay, I don't like this one. This one I'll tell you ahead of time. I'm not a really big fan out of this one, but we'll get to their... The vaccine, prevention, testing, get involved, latest news, vaccine. Yeah, there was somewhere on here where you could look at it, but the dashboard sucked. And to be honest, it's really hard to even find the vaccine. I mean, whoever did this, just not a big thing here. Okay, I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So they give you this kind of breakdown by county, and you can break down daily trends a little bit. But again, it's just a cheap little Excel chart for the most part. You can do it by map view. And I thought, okay, cool, let's look at fatality data. And it gives you, and it's basically an Excel chart, but it doesn't really enable you to break. The only thing it has on here that's valuable is it breaks it down by the amount of people that died from various things. And hypertension, nobody ever talks about that, but that's the number one thing that's killing people, that and diabetes. And when you look at by age, I mean, you can see kind of where these are at. It's like, all right, you know, you have 0 to 19, you have 2 people that died from hypertension, which seems really odd that somebody from 0 to 9 would have hypertension. But I mean, you look at that and it's like overall, what is it? 2 people over 9 had died from coronavirus. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, you can't even have this. 4 people who were teenagers died. And then you look at people who are 80 and over, 90 and over. So it helps. It helps in that regard. Fatality count, I guess it has right here. Kind of where things have, but it doesn't really break things down very well for the most part, and it's not very movable. Texas, on the other hand, let's take a look at this one. Let's see if this is the one or not. Yeah, that's in the U.S. Let's see, that's the CDC one. We're not looking at that one. And they have Texas case counts. All right. That same applet, I'm guessing it's the same. It's going to look similar to what we had before, which is kind of like the one in Florida, what we expected. All right. We'll look at trends. Again, cases, we're past the second wave. Deaths, they're not quite past the second wave, but they're on their way down. But looking at everything that we saw from prior states, we know kind of what's going to happen with there. And of course, they say probable cases, which means they don't know for sure if it's coronavirus. So overall, we can see where things are at. So with that being said, it's important to make sure that you have your stocks in. We're doing oil, travel, casinos, hospitality stocks for the most part. We will do some things as far as EV or some cyber technology stuff because it's going to be impacted by the Biden administration. But for the most part, I'm not getting overly involved in those. But with that being said, you want to make sure you have everything ready to go. You want to make sure you have a plan. You want to make sure you have things measured. So if you want to use this spreadsheet, there's a link in the video description for this, but um, make sure you have a plan. As far as stocks that I'm going to buy, AGS, which is a basically a business intelligence, cyber intelligence software platform. It's one that I'm consider buying. It's sitting about 650 right now. I'm not going to buy it until it hits 580. Um, so for right now, until we get a big dip, I'm not really going to buy anything. But with that being said, we'll take a look at what's happening over the long weekend. Again, we have a 3-day weekend. Market's moving positive, but again, it's super early. You always want to check this as it goes on later and see where things are standing. So, that being said, if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I'll see you next week.
To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.